Missouri, and welcome to this week's edition of What Retirement Means to You, brought to you by the team of Means Financial Group, based right here in the St. Louis area. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have the president and founder of Means Financial Group, the man himself, Jerry Means. And if you have ever wondered how you are going to choose the right financial advisor for you, what kind of questions should you ask someone, how can you be confident that you are choosing the right person to help you successfully navigate to and through retirement, you're not going to want to miss today's show. Jerry, my friend, always great to see you. How are you this week?
Always good to see you, and I appreciate that introduction. That was a great introduction, so thank you for that. Very flattering.
You're so welcome. Well, it is such an honor to get to do this show with you. I know we share a mutual passion for financial education and just really helping empower folks make the best decisions possible with their hard-earned money.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to be here, excited to talk a little bit about our firm and what I think makes us different. And get into that. So.
Absolutely. Well, the title of today's show is Different by Design. And what we thought we would do, we realized that a lot of viewers might be newer to Jerry, newer to Means Financial Group, and to the show of What Retirement Means to You. We're going to peel back the curtain today on the financial services industry and help you understand what really sets Jerry and the team of Means Financial Group apart in this space, along with helping empower you to know what kinds of questions you should always ask any financial advisor that you're considering working with. So this is going to be a great conversation today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Wonderful.
You know, I mean, looking back, you know, growing up as a kid, I never thought this is what I was going to do for my profession. You know, I was always interested in finances, but I just never really thought, like I was like most kids, I wanted to be a fireman or a policeman or a baseball player, of course, you know, some kind of athlete or anything, a veterinarian, because I love animals. I've always talked about, we have our dog Maui in the office, but big animal lover. So I always thought I'd do something like that. It really was kind of an accident in a way that I got into the financial planning business. My grandfather was probably the monarch of the family on my dad's side. Whenever anyone had financial troubles or concerns or really just really needed any wisdom, they would kind of go to my grandfather.
Okay.
You know, he was just that person that was easy to talk to. And he was, you know, one of the greatest generation, right? So he went through World War II. He's been through the Great Depression. He worked for the same company for a long time, got a pension, you know, so I realized at a really early age there was something different about him. You know, it seemed like he was kind of going through retirement with ease. And I noticed that he was always reading the Wall Street Journal. He was always watching the stock channel. And I was the oldest of all the grandsons. And so we were kind of buddies, you know, and I find that a lot of times with the oldest, you know, the first one to kind of ask Grandpa the questions, you know. So I sat down with them and I just said, hey, I'm really interested in what you do. What have you done differently? And I guess it intrigued him that I was so interested because we had this conversation when I was like 13 years old.
Wow,
right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Most kids aren't thinking about that. You know, they usually go to grandma's house and at 13 they can't wait to leave. You know what I mean? Because they want to get out with their friends and do sports or whatever.
Right.
But I would sit there and he would show me the Wall Street Journal, show me what ticker symbols are, what bonds were, and teach me about the markets and how to track them and everything else. And told me about his stockbrokers and stuff like that. And I was just really, really interested, not because I wanted to do it for a living. I just wanted to be buddies with my grandpa and hear his stories. And it was just something we did together.
And learn from him.
Yeah. And so, you know, fast forwarding, I still didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. I'd worked in an accounting department for a clinical laboratory in St. Louis. And but I wasn't happy there. And it just didn't feel fulfilling for me. And I got a phone call one day from a financial advisor. And he said, your grandfather asked me to give you a call. He said you might be a good fit for our firm. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I was telling him I'm looking for, you know, young guys that are interested in the business that I think that might be good for the business. And he said that you're a really hard worker and that you're interested in the markets. And I said, well, if my grandfather told you to call me, I'm going to sit down with you and give you the time. And I sat down with him and he showed me what they do and how they do it. And I was like, oh, I could do this. You know, I could do this and enjoy this. And I did. And it was the right move, you know, because here I am 26 years later. I've built a really nice business. And my wife works in the office. My son works in the office. I've got other advisors and other staff. But I really, really enjoy it. But I found out early on that I did like working with people like my grandfather, maybe, you know, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, and helping them do the retirement planning. And I just, right early on, I focused my business on that.
And I love that because I think back then when you first got into the industry, we didn't really hear terms such as retirement income planning and retirement planning specialists because the baby boomer generation wasn't quite at that stage yet. But now, my gosh, you hear that term a lot, but you were really at the beginning of being able to see, okay, this is a need and this is how I can step in and fill it. Because as we've talked about on previous shows, it is a separate skill set to be able to help someone transition into retirement and then navigate successfully through it. There's just so many other challenges that today's modern retiree is facing.
Yeah, a lot of that generation, like my grandfather, the greatest generation, their mortgage was paid for, right? They had been through the Depression, so they didn't like debt. So everything was paid for. He worked for the same company for 30 years, got a really nice pension. Him and my grandmother both drew Social Security. He dabbled like in real estate on the side, things because he wanted to, not because he had to. For fun, right?
Yeah.
Keep his mind sharp.
Right.
My grandfather used to tell me, if you rest, you rust. He said, that was another lesson I learned from him. He said, you got to keep going. You got to keep your mind going.
If you rest, you rust.
Yep.
That is a really good saying.
Yep. So I live by that. You know, I mean, you got to keep your mind sharp. And so it really, you know, just watching him go through retirement, I thought that's what I was going to do is basically people would have a pension and Social Security, and then they would need investment help, right? That was financial planning back in the day.
Right.
We didn't talk about income planning because everyone had their income taken care of.
Yep.
The boomers come along, right? The pensions are gone for the most part. I mean, there's some that still are out there, federal employees, things like that. But for the most part, pensions have been done away with, and they've got 401ks, 403bs. Now we're talking about income planning, okay? Because Social Security is not enough, and now they've saved this big nest egg. How do I retire off of that? And that's where my practice really focuses in on.
I love that. What are some other things that you feel like really sets you and the team of Means Financial Group apart?
So we are a fiduciary firm, as I mentioned. But I think it's the family dynamic. You know, we have all of the tools that the big box firms have. The big corporate office,
big corporate
offices. You know, I always say big box, but to shorten it. But yeah, I mean, we have all those tools. But when you come into our office, we know your face, we know your name. When you call my office, you're not going to get the 1-800 Who Cares number, right? It's going to be someone that knows you, knows your accounts, knows your family. I mean, I've had cases where maybe a client needed something notarized or a signature done and they're not feeling well. I've sent a staff member out there, their home, to take care of it. You know, I mean, you don't get that with a lot of those big corporate firms.
No, for sure.
You know, so when they come in, you can feel in our office that it's a small family firm.
Well, two other things I wanted to just really highlight as well. You mentioned the term fiduciary. Can you go ahead and define that for our viewers and why that is another important distinction?
Yeah, so back when we first started, everyone called themselves stockbrokers, right? Back in the 80s, it was cool to be a doctor, a lawyer, stockbroker. Like you heard that all the time.
Right.
Then the movie Wall Street came out, which kind of shined a negative light on Wall Street. And there was some good reason for some of that too. But people stopped using the word stockbroker. But a lot of the advisors out there still have the same license of what makes them a stockbroker.
Right, the licensing didn't change.
The licensing didn't change.
The language
just what
did.
the language they put on the card, you know. And then so it got confusing. Okay, well, who's a stockbroker? Who's a fiduciary advisor? A fiduciary advisor actually charges a fee for their advice versus a commission on a product. So there's no decision, well, I'm going to put it over here because I make more.
Right, or I earn a big commission or something like that. It removes that conflict
of interest. And there's no reason to
interest.
buy and sell in a portfolio if there isn't a reason.
Right.
Because we're trying to trigger some type of commission. So a stockbroker wakes up every January 1st and they have to sell someone something or they're not going to make a commission, they're not going to make a living.
The second thing I just want to present for folks is that you are also independent. So we've been talking about some of these bigger, more corporate firms. Talk about the benefit of Means Financial Group being an independent firm.
Well, it's just that. You know, we use a big custodian that to house the money in that people would know, but they don't pay any of our utilities, our office, our staff. I do that. So when you pull into my parking lot, it says Means Financial Group on 3 sides of the building, right? Because it's my building.
Right.
When you walk in and meet my staff, they're my employees. And so I don't have a firm above me or a team above me of executives telling me what I need to push to my clients. I'm able to offer them what I think is in their best interest based on the conversations that we have. And if we need to pivot, we can pivot.
Right.
It actually cuts out a lot of the red tape too. You know, because some of the advisors that work for those big corporate offices, it's not like they're doing a bad job or they're bad people,
Right.
but they sometimes get kind of pigeonholed into certain plans that they're supposed to offer, right? Because someone's paying them a salary and paying for their staff and paying for their building, so they
Right.
want to make those executives happy, you know. So that's the real difference, is we truly are independent and can just work with our people.
Well, I know that you offer something very special to our television viewers, and this is completely complimentary to all of you who are watching. It's known as the On Track Retirement Review. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if you call the number on the screen or you click on the QR code, you'll get an opportunity to come into my office and meet my staff, including Maui. You'll get to come in, you'll sit down with us. We're just going to get to know each other, find out what retirement means to you, what you're looking for. And if you like, we'll set a second appointment where we'll do some analysis on all of your accounts. We're going to do a tax analysis. We're going to do a risk assessment. We're going to design an income plan for you. And we're going to talk about your estate plan, health care, anything else that you would like to discuss. We're going to do the holistic planning for you. And we do that at no cost and no charge. And a lot of times our process takes 2, 3, 4 meetings, but there's never any pressure. So I tell people, come in, it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion. Make sure that you're on track either to retire or stay retired. And you can't get a second opinion from the same person that gave you the first one. So give us a call, we would love to meet you.
Wonderful. Jerry, thank you so much. For those of you watching at home, if you would like to be able to schedule your complimentary On Track Retirement Review, all you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 844-878-1293. Or if you'd rather not talk to someone right now, don't worry, we've got you covered. Simply pull out your smartphone. You can open up that camera app. Just point, click, and scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary On Track Retirement Review that way as well. More on this week's edition of What Retirement Means to You right after this.
We're a pretty small boutique firm. When you come into our office, it really does have a family feel to it. My wife works in the office. My son works in the office as well. We also have our dog Maui. He's kind of the mascot. When you do come in, you meet our receptionist, Jen, and we call her the Director of First Impressions because she's great with people. We have a small building that I own. It's very easy to pull up and see us and walk in and get greeted right away. Something that I hear from a lot of people is they just feel comfortable. They feel like they're sitting down and sitting with a friend already. We just sit down with them and educate them and tell them about our services and what we do and how we do it and try to find out if we're a good fit. A lot of my staff is family. So it is a family business, you know, and most people that come in, that's the most important thing to them is their family. So it's good for them to see that in our environment.
Welcome back to What Retirement Means to You, brought to you by the team of Means Financial Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with the man himself, Jerry Means. He is the president and founder, and we are having a really wonderful conversation today, helping shed light on some of the differences within the financial services industry, and specifically what makes Means Financial Group different in this space. And you are different by design. That's what this whole conversation has been based on. One of the other things I want to highlight that really sets you and the team of Means Financial Group apart is that you actually engage in strategic tax planning for your clients. And a lot of folks don't realize that there's a difference between tax preparation and tax planning. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think the biggest misconception is people are going to go to their accountant or their CPA and they're going to get tax advice. Well, they do, but it's after the fact, right? You bringing them your W-2s or your 1099s or your brokerage statements, whatever it is, and they're basically just helping you put together your tax return and file it. Now, you may get little nuggets of advice like, well, if you put money into an IRA, you'll get a tax deduction over here. You might want to consider a Roth IRA because there's some tax-free benefits. But what I find is that tends to be kind of that's it.
That's the limited scope of the conversation.
Because the year's already passed.
Yes.
And a lot of times they'll say, well, do this going forward, and next year it'll save you a little bit of money on your tax return. Keep in mind, accountants want you to be happy with your tax return because they want you to come back again next year. And if they do your bookkeeping, they want you to be happy, right?
Right.
So they're all about saving taxes today, that instant gratification. What we're looking at is projected taxes, right? I think there's anyone out there watching is probably going to agree that taxes are more likely to go up than go down. If they say they're going to go down, I would like to have a conversation with them to see what makes them think that. But I do not think they're going to go down. I think they're going to go up. So tax planning is important. I mean, if you can imagine, if you're in a 20% tax bracket and your Social Security is $1,000 a month, right? That means 20% goes to taxes. And so you're only getting $800 net every year, not $1,000. If the government raises taxes and your tax bracket goes up to 30%, well, now not only are you're paying more in taxes, but your income dropped from $800 to $700, right? So you're getting less of an income. Well, things aren't getting cheaper either. It's not just taxes that are going up.
Because inflation has been off the charts,
We've seen off the chart inflations, but even historical inflation numbers, are going to be somewhere around 3%.
Right.
So you have to prepare for inflation, and actually raising taxes could be some of the biggest inflation or tax on your portfolio that you'll see.
It's the hidden tax.
It's the hidden tax, right?
Yeah.
Or the hidden inflation. And so what we do is we try to show people, okay, here's some of the tax planning that we can do to soften the blow down the road. And by the way, we need to address inflation because you're going to need more money, down the road to pay for things. The big misconception is when you retire, you're in a lower tax bracket, right? I can tell you that I don't see that. People come in, they're retiring, and they're like, I thought I'm supposed to be in a lower tax bracket. Why am I getting hit with all these taxes? Well, you've lost a lot of deductions, plus taxes have just went up.
Right.
Plans are getting taxed differently, so you have to consider all of those things.
Yeah.
Another big thing is required minimum distributions. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand that for my whole career, and really since the beginning when it started, when you had pre-taxed accounts, 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, at age 70 and a half, you're forced to start taking money out. It's called the required minimum distribution.
Right.
In 2020, they increased that to age 72.
Right.
And then last year, they came out with Secure Act 2.0 and said, now you have to be 73. Who knows where they're going with this, right?
Well, and for my year that I was born, now it's going to be 75 by the time I get there. And who knows what other legislative changes. The rules are always changing.
Well, I'm going to play the cynic here, and you're not going to find this anywhere on a government website. But I don't think they did that to be nice. I think it was kind of a trick that they played because the tax rates right now, the Trump tax cuts that happen expire at the end of 2025.
Right.
So by default, tax rates go up in 2026. Don't you think it's a little bit odd that all of a sudden the government's saying, well, you don't have to pull from those qualified plans right now. You can wait a little bit later, and it's going to be when taxes are higher.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think it was a little bit self-serving, but again, that's just my opinion.
Well, no, I would agree with you. I think the other thing they were thinking about is they know how much money is in these tax-deferred accounts, right?
It's like $6 trillion.
Yes, and the longer those accounts have to grow, the more of a cut they're going to get. Also, if that money is left to generations younger, they're often in their higher earning years.
Yes.
And they did away with that stretch IRA provision. I know we're getting in the weeds a little bit here, but basically now if you leave money to a child, they only have 10 years before they have to liquidate that account.
That's right.
And they're going to have to pay the tax bill. So it's all connected.
I mean, I used to do generation planning with my clients because there are people that don't need the money. They're like, I'm leaving this to my kids or grandkids. And we were able to show them how we could set up a designated beneficiary IRA that could be stretched out over two different families' lifetimes. And they took that away.
Yep.
Now, people that already were doing that were grandfathered in. So it basically happened for anyone that passed away, I think it was after 2020. And now it has to be liquidated within 10 years. But I have clients actually that are 100 years old. I've had clients that started with me when they were in their 80s, and now they're 100 years old. And some of them still take dance lessons, by the way.
I love that.
And so I think that's pretty cool. Talk about if you rust, you rust, right? I mean, I don't think he meant, take dance lessons at 100 years old.
Right.
But I've set up some of those stretch plans for those people, and it's going to be pretty cool because we used to be able to set it up that every year on their grandchild's birthday, they would get a check from them, even after they were gone, right? So what a cool present. They're going to ask who that grandma or grandpa is if they get a check every year on their birthday. They want to know who they are.
Right.
So But there are other things we can still do tax-wise. So we want to project the required minimum distributions. We want to look at, okay, if you are leaving a legacy to the kids or grandkids, what's the best way to do it? What's the most tax-efficient way of doing that? And your accountant probably isn't going to do that for you.
Right.
So that's why we tell people, come in, let's do a tax analysis. We're not going to do your tax return.
Right.
You've got someone for that.
Yeah.
We're going to help you project and prepare for these future changes in the tax code.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to give us a call, just reach out. We'll let you sit down with us for no cost, no obligation, and we'll do our on-track retirement review. And what that means is we're going to look at your on track to retire and on track to stay retired. You know, wherever side of the fence you're on, we can help you. And one of the big things we're going to talk about is tax planning.
Wonderful. Jerry, thank you so much. And I know you love analogies. I think another one, just to help our viewers sum up that tax conversation, is that a tax preparer, if you're preparing your taxes, that's the archaeologist looking back, right? What Jerry and the team of Means Financial Group are wanting to do for you is be architects of your financial future and engage in looking ahead and helping you proactively plan for your tax burden in retirement and looking at how you can mitigate that any way possible. So if you would like to learn how you can create greater tax efficiency throughout your full financial plan, we invite you to call 844-878-1293. Or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. More on what retirement means to you right after this.
We know the market is going to get worse from here. This is the biggest monthly decline in 10 years. People's 401ks today.
Well, my investments are tanking. My retirement isn't going as planned. I can't believe I let my kid talk me into buying crypto. I mean, what is that anyway?
This was the fourth worst contraction in history.
So how are you two doing?
Your financial future doesn't have to be uncertain. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis.
I started working in the retirement market, seeing people during the day. And what I quickly found out is they had a really unique set of challenges that were different than everyone else. They were worried about longevity and outliving their money, worried about, long-term care, how they were going to leave their legacy to their children and grandchildren. So I really focused my practice on that, and that's what I've been helping people with for the last 25 years. It's an ongoing process. Life changes, family dynamics change, the markets, the political environment change. So really sitting down and have a written plan. We want to make sure that you stay on track to stay retired. Right? The worst thing is to be 80 years old, run out of money, and have to go back to work. We want to stress test all these different scenarios and make sure that their plan is going to stand the test of time. And you can't do that if you don't have a written plan or a strategy in place.
Well, welcome back to What Retirement Means to You. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with Jerry Means, president and founder of Means Financial Group. And we are talking today about what makes Means Financial Group so different and really how you can help and serve people and their best interests from a financial perspective. I think it's important to talk about, we were just talking about engaging in strategic tax planning. The bulk of Americans have the majority of their wealth saved up in these tax-deferred accounts, so 401ks, 403bs, traditional IRAs. A lot of folks now have the opportunity to utilize Roth IRAs. Now, there's some confusion over, okay, if I make too much, maybe I can't do a Roth contribution, but some folks can still do, or most people can still do a Roth conversion, right? I think we need to talk about that because I know there's a lot of confusion.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot that we can do there. First of all, if you put money into an IRA, it's just like putting money into your 401k or one of those types of plans. You're getting a tax deduction this year for contributing to that plan. So it comes right off of your income. If you make 80 grand a year and you put 10,000 into your 401k, you're only taxed on 70,000.
Right.
That money grows tax deferred, comes out, taxes ordinary income whenever you pull it out. By the way, they keep changing the rules.
Yes.
Right? So that's the hard part of that. And we know taxes are going up. So you're really getting a tax break on the seed right now. You're growing it over time into this big crop. And then when you need to access it, you're taxed on the crop. We call it the greatest trick ever played. We actually do a presentation on this in live events. But what I tell people is if you can, contribute to a Roth IRA. On a Roth IRA, there's no tax deduction, so you don't get that instant gratification for putting the money in. But it still grows tax deferred. And as long as you wait till you're after age 59 and a half and it's been in there at least 5 years, all of that growth comes out tax-free. So it doesn't matter what happens with the tax codes.
Right.
I mean, it matters, but it
not
won't
for that
matter,
account,
but not on
right?
that account, right? But as you said, some people make too much money, they're not allowed to contribute to a Roth IRA. But they are able to do Roth conversions. So they can take some of the money in those pre-tax accounts, convert it to a Roth. Now you have to pay taxes in the year that you do that. So we try to do tax planning and make sure that we don't bump them into the next bracket. You know,
Right.
they call it bumping the bracket. So it's strategic, right? And we do a little bit each year so that we're funneling money into this tax-free account for later in life. Now, if you do make too much money and you can't contribute and the Roth conversion doesn't make sense for you, there is something called the backdoor Roth. And what the backdoor Roth is you can contribute to a non-deductible IRA. So you don't get the deduction for putting it into the IRA, but then you turn around and do the Roth conversion and it's in a Roth. So there are ways of doing it if you get creative. And we do help people do that. So again, just one of the things that we do on our on-track review.
Right, and this is utilizing the tax code. We're not talking about tax evasion or anything here. We're talking about legal maneuvers that you can make to help you lower your tax liability. And a lot of folks just aren't aware of the resources that are available to them.
Yeah, and for people that make too much money to contribute to a Roth, or they've maxed the Roth out because there are limits, we show them how we can do what we call is the super Roth. And they basically buy life insurance with a cash value that's
Okay.
linked to the market. It can be fixed or linked to the market. And we do what's called overfunding. So you're putting more into the plan than what the actual death benefit insurance costs. And that money grows tax deferred within that plan. And if it's properly structured, you can pull that growth out tax free.
Wow.
So for a lot of high income earners, that can be another alternative.
Right, lots of strategies available.
Lots of things.
Real quickly, I want to mention you brought up live events. Talk to our viewers how they can actually connect with you in person at some of your live events.
Yeah, so we do live speaking engagements where you can come in, listen to myself or one of my fiduciary advisors talk. We usually offer some type of dinner. We've done things at like a classic car museum where after we're done, everyone gets to walk around and look at the classic cars. We've done some cool things at a movie theater, did a premiere for a movie that's out there called The Baby Boomer Dilemma. There's lots of things like that that we do. So just give us a call. We'll set you up at one of those events, or you can just come in for that on-track review, or you can use the QR code and we'll get back to you and invite you to one of those events.
Wonderful. Jerry, thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation. And thank you for joining us today. Again, that number to call to get your complimentary on-track retirement review, 844-878-1293. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to being back with you next week here on What Retirement Means to You.